Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
Welcome to Caribbean Perspective. So glad you can join us. The story that dominates in today's edition for Tuesday, 19th August 2025, and brought to you in association with our friends at Antillean Group. Some immigrants seeking a U.S. green card by getting married could be deported. Details after this important message.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all, perils big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's a service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. A look at the policy put out by the Department of Homeland Security in the United States focuses on both immigrants seeking a U.S. green card through marriage or those seeking permanent residency through other family members. Details of the latest in this NBC News item as an immigration attorney explains.
Joining us now to put all of this in focus, immigration attorney Gustavo Mora. Thanks so much for joining us once again.
Sure. Hi, Colleen. How are you? Thank you.
Good. Now, this change applies to pending requests on August 1st or later. Are there people who applied before all of this? They could still be granted a green card?
Yes, of course. And moving forward, all of the individuals that are applying for adjustment of status can also be granted a green card. This is just the immigration office raising the stakes and making it a little more difficult for individuals to apply for an adjustment of status. That's why it's so important to get the message out that if you are going to move forward on something with the USCIS affirmatively, you should contact an immigration attorney to help you out because of the risk of being sent to immigration court.
And Gustavo, Kathy Vara here. An NBC News analysis found that more than 500,000 petitions were filed by family members in the first half of the year. So what happens to all of those petitions?
So again, all of the petitions continue. This is just giving the officers more discretion on whether or not they're going to be able to be efficient or inefficient in this process. Specifically, they don't have to issue, moving forward, requests for evidence or notices of intent to deny and can simply deny the case outright. They also have the option, discretionarily, of course, of sending the case to immigration court. But again, with the assistance of an immigration attorney, there are still ways to present this case, but the bottom line is that it's going to cause a lot more inefficiencies because these cases, if they are sent to immigration court, are going to require a lot of time and coverage by not only an immigration judge, but also by an attorney with the Department of Homeland Security, as well as private counsel.
Gustavo, a lot of people think you automatically become either a U.S. citizen or are entitled to a green card if you marry a U.S. citizen. Can you walk us through that process?
Sure, and I appreciate the question. Persons that have legally entered the United States or persons that are protected under Section 245I of the law, which had a petition prior to 2001, are allowed to apply for a green card in the United States, generally, on family petitions. Individuals who don't meet those two requirements can apply for a green card through the consulate from their country of origin. So they have to actually leave the country, and in many respects, many instances, have to use a waiver, what's called an I-601A waiver. So for persons who are applying here in the United States, those are the ones who would be most concerned. And specifically, it's the I-130 petition, the visa petition, the family petition filed by a spouse or a son or daughter to the individual that will come under the more scrutiny thanks to this new policy. So that's why it's important to make sure that you get all your ducks in a row and do the most effective, comprehensive application possible when you file affirmatively with immigration.
Great information there, Gustavo Mora. Thank you so much for joining us.
Several Trinidadians and one Venezuelan were arrested by the Guardia Nacional, headed to Venezuela to reportedly collect narcotics, guns, and contrabands bound for Trinidad and Tobago.
Police Commissioner Alistair Guevara would only tell CNC3 News the matter is under investigation and that the police service is committed to rooting out organized crime. However, senior intelligence officials have confirmed these videos are real. They say the Trinidadians are believed to be members of a gang that operates out of Las Cuevas and Maracas. The Venezuelan national on board is said to be linked to Tren de Agua, and the group was intercepted 60 nautical miles off the Cabo Codera in Venezuela. Over 3,000 liters of fuel and a quantity of contraband items were seized from the vessel, which was detained and everyone on board arrested either August 13th or 14th. CNC3 News was reliably informed these gangs are linked to broader transnational criminal networks currently under scrutiny as part of the ongoing state of emergency.
These individuals, some of whom are known to us, have now made our job a lot easier. That's fewer men for the TTPS to locate, and we are quite certain of where they are.
The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has arrested 6 suspects and seized 4 firearms, quantities of ammunition and narcotics during the weekend anti-crime exercises across the country. More in this TTT News item.
On Saturday, officers conducted a search in the Mugrapo Cemetery where a Glock pistol loaded with a magazine containing 3 rounds of ammunition was discovered. Meanwhile, one suspect was arrested by a warrant officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force shortly after he and another suspect robbed a male victim of a quantity of jewelry at his Faizabad home. The suspect was in possession of a loaded pistol with a magazine containing 15 rounds of ammunition. Police are looking for the second suspect. And in the Port of Spain division, task force and gang and intelligence unit officers arrested one suspect for possession of a firearm and quantity of ammunition in Mova. Another suspect, a 27-year-old from Belmont, was also arrested in connection with robbery and shooting offenses. An exercise spearheaded by the Interagency Task Force resulted in the arrest of a 24 and 22-year-old for possession of quantities of cannabis. A third suspect, a 32-year-old man of Valsane, was also held with over 1 kilogram of cannabis in his possession, while searches at Farouk Drive, El Socorro by the officers resulted in the discovery of 1 firearm concealed under a sheet of galvanize. Ayana Carter, TTT News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick, in association with our friends at
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
In some business news now out of Port of Spain, a political economist warns against the US's 15% tariff on Trinidad and Tobago goods entering the United States.
Political economist Derek Ramsamouch has issued a strong warning regarding 15% U.S. tariff on TNT exports, saying it will place additional pressure on an already burdened manufacturing sector and severely reduce export competitiveness. Ramsamouch criticized the tariff as a direct threat to local producers, many of whom are still recovering from global supply chain disruptions and rising input costs.
What it also reveals is the fallacy that the CARICOM is a voice for the region. In other countries, for example, if you look at Brazil, Brazil understood the tariffs and basically utilized its reciprocity. The question now is, does this government have the capacity to implement reciprocity of action? Not just only with respect of commodities, but in terms of the relationship of services.
He described the government's approach as timid and lacking political will, warning that the move could further undermine the country's manufacturing base and weaken trade resilience.
The Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, is dismissing the People's National Party's PNP recently launched manifesto as rushed and not properly thought out. CVM's Amoy Harriet reports.
First of all, it clearly seemed to have been a very rushed and hurriedly prepared document, just by way of how it was laid out and the errors that were in the document forces us to conclude that not a lot of thought went into it.
Chairman of the Jamaica Labour Party's campaign committee, Dr. Christopher Tufton, earlier Thursday, the governing party called a press conference where its 5-member panel slammed the recently published manifesto from the People's National Party, picking apart the document page by page. Dr. Tufton pointed to what the party says were several spelling errors and inaccuracies.
The one that was quite outstanding to us is the reference to, in the table of contents, of 8 pillars, then the address by their leader of 10 pillars in the document, the same document, and then the term love, Jamaica love, which has each letter referring to a document, an area of focus, and that is 11 areas of focus. So the first question I would ask is, what is it? Is it a pillar of 8, a pillar of 10, or a pillar of 11?
Now, one by one, the panel members took turns to criticize policies presented by the PNP in different areas to include health, finance, education, and foreign policy. Finance Minister Favour Williams questioned some figures presented in the PNP's manifesto.
They said that their many promises will cost 10% of discretionary funds. First, I'd like Jamaicans to know that there is no major line item in the budget called discretionary funds. So for the PNP to be speaking of discretionary funds, it shows their fundamental lack of understanding of this country's budget.
Now, Education Minister Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon went as far as to accuse the PNP of publishing an AI-generated document.
When you look at the manifesto, it is indeed a cut and paste of the Andrew Holness administration's policies. So as I read the manifesto, and I put on my hat as a former lecturer at UWI who used to have to mark master's theses, I had to wonder, why did it sound so much like what we're already doing? It couldn't just be that, you cut and paste. Now, I'm a big proponent of using artificial intelligence. And so as I thought through it, I realized that this must have used AI. And so I asked ChatGPT, I prompted ChatGPT to write an education plan for Jamaica. Did it in ChatGPT 5. And when the results came, which I have here, sounded just like the manifesto. The education section sounded just like that.
Meanwhile, the JLP says its manifesto is ready and will be made public at the appropriate time. Amoy Harriet reporting for CVM News.
Her Excellency Elmog Jean Isaac, a revered figure in St. Lucia and Caribbean diplomacy, was laid to rest on August 15th in St. Lucia. The funeral service held at the minor Basilica of the Immaculate Conception in Castries united members from both sides of the St. Lucia's political spectrum. Chairperson of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, paid tribute to Isaac, whom he described as a respected colleague and friend.
She was a beautiful woman, inside and outside. Indeed, a near perfect woman. A woman of grace, of natural beauty, of intelligence, of the highest degree, a professional par excellence, a woman who was a St. Lucian to the bone, loved the natural environment and sought to protect it in her life and living and her work, particularly in this age of the Anthropocene, when men are bent on destroying what we have met. And everything about her, the beauty met in her aspect and her eyes, and loved tremendously her children. A love which was an ever-fixed mark that looked on tempests, and was an ever-fixed mark that looked on tempests and was never shaken. She worked for many years in the vineyard of regional integration. She and I worked together closely with the review of the Treaty of Bastille and the establishment of the new treaty, the revised treaty, which set about to put in place an economic union. I enjoyed going to the OECS meetings, among other things, just to see my Elma Jean.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily regional news and more, in association with our friends at Antillian Group.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's a service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.